Hey guys, and welcome back to YBI, where we discuss ways and strategies to grow yourself and your financial means. Here back with Roman and Zion. Let's get it pumping.
What's happening, people? We're back today, and we are here to talk about paying off debt, something that is so important that we've been excited to get to you guys about. But today, we're going into paying off debt, all the strategies and the ways to do that. We have a COVID update, which Roman's going to get into in a little bit. We have sterling statements, and then we're going to be prepping for next week, where we're going to be talking about credit, the importance of credit, what credit is, the credit report, all that good stuff. And then we'll have somebody that's coming on to discuss what that looks like for real. So somebody that is done it and can testify to what that looks like. Other things that we need to discuss with you guys. The website is live. The website is live today. Go check it out. Go check it out. Go check it out. There are ways for you guys to donate. If anybody wants to donate, I've had a couple people hit me up about donating, and I was like, send it to my Cash App. Nah, we're not here for that. We want you guys to send it directly to the business, so we can write it off and all of that good stuff. And we need to make sure that you guys are subscribing and keeping up with us, because we do have another giveaway coming up soon. It's going to be in the first couple of weeks of July. We have another giveaway, so we are definitely excited for that. And yeah, it's going to be a good show. And we will be back right after this. We back. So we need to talk about some of the strategies on how to pay off debt. So we've got a couple of good ways that you guys can start paying off debt. And then we have a couple bad ways that people have been paying off debt. So without further ado, let's hop right into it, Roman. Opinion number one, strategy number one on how to pay off debt.
Probably one a lot of people have heard of, the debt snowball. This is one that I've also used myself. And basically how that works is, first off, you want to list off all the debts you have. If you have it, don't know what they are, you can definitely check that out by either just checking your bank statement and see what you're paying, looking at pulling your credit report, going on Credit Karma, things like that. And then listing them out from smallest to shortest. So if you got a $50 one, 100, 1,000, then up from there. And then basically you want to start paying them off smallest to largest. The idea is like a snowball. When you roll it down a mountain, it starts off small and it builds bigger as you keep going. So as you start to get the momentum for paying off your debt, you end up paying off more debt and bigger amounts of your debt. And that's the first strategy to kind of get the ball rolling for debt snowball.
Yeah. So that one is really important for people that are short-term oriented, people that need to see progress. They need to keep themselves motivated. And month by month, you'll be able to see, oh, I paid this off. So now you can cross that off of your debt list. But then you go to the next one and you can cross that off. So, you start with something that's really small and you work your way to one that's really big. But if you are the opposite type of thinker, the avalanche method may be better for you. So in the same way you want to list all of your debts that you have, I personally, like I said, I write them all down every time I get paid. I write it down and make sure that I know exactly where I'm at with that. But the avalanche method is the exact opposite of snowball, where you start with the highest one and you make the most payments on that one. Obviously, you still want to make the minimum payments minimally on all of your cards, but then you want to put anything extra that you have towards the principal of the highest balance. Understanding principal is very important, because if you just make a payment to a car, like my car note has a principal balance, but then it's also got an interest. So if I'm making a bigger payment to the principal, it's bringing down the overall balance, which means that my interest is actually coming down as well. But if you just make a payment, it's going to split that between the interest and between the principal. So it's going to bring it down at a slower rate than if you just put more money, additional funds to the principal. So that's very important to do. Some of you guys may need to call a car company or a credit card company to make sure that the extra money is being purposely used for the principal balance. The way that I do it is there's actually a little tab that allows me to do that when I'm making my car payment. It says, what additional money do you want to put towards your principal? So anything above my minimum balance, I'm putting straight towards the principal, and it's actually going to allow me to pay off my vehicle faster than if I just put everything towards the principal and the interest together. But the avalanche method is the exact opposite. Like I was saying, you pay towards the highest one first, and then they all come down. So the advantage to this one is that you're going to end up paying the biggest one down faster, and then you have smaller and smaller increments until there's nothing left. So that's the advantage. But then if you feel like you're not seeing enough dramatic, if you're not seeing enough dramatic change from month to month, then you may want to switch to Snowball and get some of the smaller ones out of the way, and then transfer to an avalanche method a little bit later.
Yeah, the probably didn't say, but the Snowball, let's say that those payments are $50, it kind of like builds up. If you're already making like a $50 payment in 1 month, you take that $50 and then add more money to that. So then by the time you do get to a higher interest loan or something, you should have more money available for that monthly payment to just throw money at that and knock it out. So it just kind of depends as well. You want to basically keep that money compounding, and keep putting that money, the same money towards debt and more in the future. Next one we have is balance transfers. Balance transfers will basically be taking a balance from one card or loan to another card or loan. So let's say you got a $500 credit card with 20% interest. You could do a balance transfer to a new card with $1,000 interest or a limit or something like that with a 0% APR for the first year. So then technically you won't have to pay interest on that new balance for transferring over for that first year, not the 20% that would be on the original card. So that ends up saving you money on interest while you pay down the actual balance of that card. The risk with that is you are opening a new account, which will lower your credit minimally, as well as you didn't have to maintain a new credit card account, which is if you're going to just close it immediately, you don't want to do that. You definitely want to leave a card open for at least like 3 to 5 years before you want to think about closing it. So definitely think about that one before you do it. But that is another strategy that can be used to help, if anything, at least push back or help prolong payments and also lower that interest.
Yeah, that's definitely what I got into though. I got to a balance transfer. It wasn't really a balance transfer. I just look at the APRs for all of the different cards that I use, which is why I use PayPal credit more than anything else, because they have 6 months interest free. So I've been using that because I have 6 months to pay this and there's no interest on it as long as I pay it within 6 months if the purchase is going to be over $200. So I've done that. And for me, it just made more sense than putting it onto a card that has a 30% interest rate or a 15% interest rate, because it's going to save me money at the end of the day. But then people try to justify that by saying, well, I get cash back on some of these cards, but the cash back sometimes isn't going to cover the interest that you're going to accrue because of the payments that you're making. So a balance transfer is definitely one that you can use.
Yeah, the standard, most common, I think, cashback offer you're usually going to see on most everyday purchases is like 1 to 4%. If your interest rate's 20 or 30%, you're not touching that at all. Cashback rewards, we're going to talk about this next week more too, but that it definitely comes more into help when you pay off the balance because you're at 0 and then you get that cash back. So that's really how you really want to use that to your advantage.
Right. Next up, debt settlement. Sorry, I'm spinning around a lot. I feel like moving. Yeah. Oh, my jacket. Yeah.
Oh, with the freshness.
Yeah, man. Shout out to one of my athletes that made this for me. Yeah, y'all can't get this. This is completely custom. So shout out to my athletes that are super talented. Debt settlement is next. This is one that I actually just did recently to get from underneath a student loan. And here's the benefit. Okay, so here's what debt settlement is. You have an amount that you owe. Let's say that's for a car or it's for a student loan or for whatever. What typically happens is that you stop paying for whatever reason. I was under the assumption that my student loans were on pause because of COVID. That's what I had thought. And I mean, being real transparent with you guys, it didn't. It wasn't on hold, and I forgot to check. I thought that all of my student loans were on hold, but this one in particular was not. So I hadn't paid it in however long, like 3 months, because I was like, oh yeah, they're on pause. I'll get back to that, because why not? There's no point in me paying it if it's not hurting me in any way, there's no interest. I was like, cool, I'll just pay other things. I'll divert those finances during this time to doing other things. Then all of a sudden I got a letter in the mail that was like, yeah, you're 4 months behind. I was like, huh? What do you mean? And so I did a debt settlement. There was like $10,000 that was owed, and I went and I spoke with the people who the loan was through, and I said, okay, what's a number that we can agree on? I didn't end up paying 50% less, but it was thousands of dollars less than what it could have been, and I paid that off, and it's done for. The positive to that is, yes, you do get a decent amount off of the loan that you originally had, and that's fantastic if you have that kind of money sitting around. Fortunately, I had a little bit of money sitting aside, so I was able to make that payment. It was, like $6,000, $7,000, whatever it was. Made that payment. The downside to that is that at the end of the year, come tax time, you have to pay taxes on whatever the forgiveness amount was. So let's say that the original loan was 10,000, I ended up paying 7, so there's $3,000 that is unaccounted for. The government considers that as income for you. They consider that as money that you should have had to pay to a different individual, but you didn't. So because of that, you now owe money. So you do have to pay taxes on that at the end of the year, which, it kind of sucks, but considering that taxes is what, like 10% when you think about it,
Yeah, 10 to
versus
20% for probably
yeah,
our average viewers like income bracket. So if
yeah.
it's,
So
10 to 20% on $3,000, still cheaper than paying back $3,000.
exactly. So that's definitely an option. But the things that you need to know with that, you have to have enough capital to make a payment that's that large. So if you don't have an emergency fund, if you don't have money sitting aside, do not put this on a credit card. This is not something that you say, oh yeah, I want to do a debt settlement for $4,000 and take that $4,000 and put it onto a credit card. That doesn't make any sense. You don't want to take $4,000 and put it on 35% APR. Now all of a sudden you're going to end up paying 8,000. We don't want to do that. You have to have cash for that. And then you have to make sure that you're able to make a payment at the end of the year come tax time, because you will be responsible for that. So that is debt settlement, and being real transparent with you guys. That is what I did most recently, and works for me. So
I've also done
hey,
settlements for like student loans and like that, those things like that in the past. So it definitely helps out. It definitely can be a huge weight off of you as well. Our last things that we want to talk about are things that we really don't want people to use for paying off the debt, and that's bankruptcy and also getting just like personal loans. I know a lot of people end up getting like the junk mail and the spam mail saying like, approved for this low interest personal loan and pay off or consolidate your debt, all that stuff. Um, don't use them. Just
yeah,
don't try not to use them. Try use these other strategies to pay off your debt. There's no point of getting yourself in more debt to pay off old debt, because then you're still gonna have to pay off that debt and still pay interest on it. So you might as well use like the Avalanche or the Snowball, or even just settling the debt as a whole instead of trying to get a personal loan to then pay it off, and then you're back paying off a loan for another 5 to 10 years when you could have just been done with it in 6 months to a year. So
yeah.
definitely just try to steer clear of those as much as possible.
Yeah,
But
when you look at debt consolidation and trying to so debt consolidation is taking a larger payment from somebody else. Let's say that you owe $35,000, and that is for your car, that's for credit cards, that's for student loans, that's all of that. You take a $35,000 loan from one of these companies, they pay all of these other people, but then the negatives to that, they're going to close all of your credit card accounts, which is major no. That is a significant no. The APR is probably going to be higher. Actually, no, the APR can be lower, but the term length is so much longer. So you have a reasonable payment. So in your eyes, you're paying $700 a month for everything rather than paying $1,200 a month to all the little different companies. But at the same time, the loan term may be 10 years. So when you talk about paying that $700 for 10 years, you paid a ridiculous amount of money, rather than looking at it from the objectives of Snowball or Avalanche, where you can still take that same money that you're going to be using for the next couple of years, and you can pay it off yourself rather than giving so much extra money to one of these other companies. I mean, I'm just not a fan of payday loans, or payday loans are a no-go at all. But bankruptcy is another thing that. What else were you gonna say about payday loans before I jumped in there?
Oh no, just don't get them.
Not payday loans, bankruptcy. My fault.
I don't know, just don't do it.
Just don't do
Steer
it. Yeah,
clear of it there with these other strategies and methods, and just putting yourself on a budget. And if you end up calling one of these companies and they're like, well, you got to settle with us for 500, but you only got 200, try to work with them on that. Or, just save up that money to get to that 300 or 400 and then call back and pay it off. There are definitely more ways, instead of going into bankruptcy or getting another loan to then pay this off, or even using balance transfers. If that's an option for you, can also be way better than doing a bankruptcy or a personal loan or a payday loan. That kind of
right.
also kind of segues us into our COVID update too. So our COVID update right now, America, we're looking for the next financial kind of issue would be evictions and foreclosures. A lot of people think that with the CARES Act that rent payments were forgiven. That's not true. They just built up. Evictions were frozen, so no one could file for an eviction for anything until coming up to the end of this month. But now they starting to can. So if you have not, or if you are behind on your rent and you have not talked to your landlord, this video is airing a couple days after the first. If you're late on this month's rent, talk to your landlord. Be like, hey, I may not have all the rent, but I have this much, and get on a payment plan with them. An eviction is so costly to you. It is costly to your credit. It is time consuming. It is stressful. You do not want to go through one. So if you can just avoid one altogether and just get on a payment plan with your landlord, they'd rather be on a payment plan and do get the money from you eventually than for them to go through an eviction process. No one, not even a landlord site, wants to go through that. So just get a
Because they're
hold of
expensive.
yes.
They're
And
very expensive.
if this ends up happening, we're going to end up not only facing an economic and a pandemic and like a racial problem in America, we're also going to face another homelessness problem. And still with that has like racial issues within it. But we want to make sure we're kind of prepared for that right now and start talking about it so that people are prepared for it. Yeah.
Yeah. So understanding that there's so much that's going on right now, but we're walking, like we said, like Roman and I are still doing the things that we are recommending to you guys. Like I said, I just did Debt Settlement. I've done some of the other things, Snowball, Avalanche. I've tried both of those options. I picked one that works best for me. And we've tried these other methods, but understand that we are still walking through this process with you guys. But if you are still feeling you don't have a good enough grasp on what we're saying, make sure that you're tuning in next week when we're talking about credit, because there's so much that goes into credit. There's like it's all over the place.
Credit and debt are brother and sister, so they kind of
Yeah,
go hand in hand with each other. Credit is pretty much debt. So just knowing how those two intermingle and how they work together are very interesting. Like we were already talking today about looking at your credit report and going on Credit Karma just to see what debts you have, because your credit is linked to your debt.
yeah. So we're gonna be back and talk about that because it's so important. But we feel like we need to give you this information first, so you know what it is that you're going to be attacking. And then at the same time, we have budgeting that's already out there that you guys can go watch, and investing in self and all that stuff. But now we need to look at how all of the things that you're doing and how all the strategies are actually going to affect you personally, so that later in life you have a good idea and a good grasp of what it is that you can do with this in theory credit. Like, because it's not something that you have tangibly. It's just numbers and things that are up in the air. So these are things that we need you guys to really have a good understanding of, so that you can make better decisions moving forward. So that is what we have to say about paying off debt for today. Let's hop into Sterling statements. Sterling statements for today. Number one, pick a method and give it a real try. Attempt to do Snowball or Avalanche first. Grab your budget, grab your list of all of your bills. Do that first. That is step number one. Do that first. After you've gotten a list of everything, figure out what type of person that you are. Are you the type of person that needs to see things being paid off day by day, month by month? Are you the person that is big picture that can say, you know what, I'm gonna put as much money towards this as possible, watch that decrease, and then now that this one's paid off, let me take that same amount of money and pay this one down, pay this one down, pay this one down, and now they're all gone. Figure out what type of person you are and how you want to attack this. But still make sure that you're leaving yourself, one, enough money to go into emergency fund, two, enough money to invest in yourself, three, leave yourself money to have fun, to do something for yourself, as that investing in self. You have to be happy as an individual. I'm a firm believer that you need to be able to do some things for yourself. I'm not a all or nothing kind of person where I'm like, stop going to the movies. I mean, if you go to the movies 4 times a week, yeah, you probably go to the movies too much. Cut it down to once a week, but don't cut it out completely. Give yourself the ability to have fun and to do things that are going to make you happy. But at the same time, you have to be smart with the way that you're living and the way that you're budgeting. But once you pick one of those methods, stick with it for a decent amount of time. Give yourself 3 to 6 months and see how you feel. See how your bills look, but also see how your savings looks. See how your savings accounts look, and how do you feel about that? Do you feel like you're making enough? Do you feel like you're doing enough? And then the options that you have for that are to increase the amount of income that you have coming in by picking up a side hustle, by investing in yourself, by doing other things, by going to watch our other videos, because those will help you a tremendous amount. Other sterling statements for today. Make sure that you're staying in touch with landlords and staying on top of rent and those things, because you don't want those to come back on you. You really don't. Those things affect your credit in a tremendous way, which you'll be able to see next week.
You need to know that your home, health, and your food and your lights are basically paid for. You need to make sure your foundation at home is set before you can go out and still do a lot of these things, because if you worried about getting kicked out your house, you're not going to be paying off the other debts. You got to make sure that's set.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to have somewhere to go home to at the end of the day. Like that's majorly important. So, last thing for today is to make sure that you guys are subscribing to the channel, push the notification bell, because we posting, like I said, twice a week, and we will be back next week. So make sure that you guys, as always, are understanding that we may be young and we may be broke, but we are always investing. Till next time, guys. Peace.
Hey everybody, thank you for listening to Young Broken Investing. We just want to let you know that these are the opinions of the hosts. They're not meant to be the basis of any security purchases or investments. We're trying to give a little information out there for everybody, and have fun and be safe.